All hail the new king. It is the techies and the engineers. There's just not enough of them, and you are seeing a tech war, a war that's being battled not just by startups among themselves, but also with traditional IT companies. It's a conversation I had earlier with Aon Consulting. Here's that conversation. Today on Startup Central, we're going to put the spotlight on the tech talent war. Engineer is king. Traditional IT companies are struggling with high attrition rates as well as wage inflation. On the other hand, you've got well-capitalized or extremely well-capitalized startups in a position to throw money at tech talent. Certainly a great time to be an engineer, isn't it? Joining us to talk more about this is Nitin Sethi. He is, of course, the CEO of Aon Consulting in India. Nitin, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us here. First, tell us, is it true that there is indeed a tech talent war on? And, is money really being thrown for engineers? It certainly looks like it when you look at the numbers, at least the attrition rate numbers for the traditional IT companies.
Yeah, no, I good to be here, Nayantara. Always good to be speaking to you too. Absolutely, I would say. I think the last couple of quarters, there's an absolute war for talent out there. And in the past, we've always seen tech salaries kind of growing amongst the fastest. But I think it's just more than that at the moment. It's not just about retention, but at the time of hiring, I'm sure people have read all around about companies are going out of the way to kind of attract talent. Get new talent on board, and I don't think India Inc. or the technology industry was geared up for this. Many companies have kind of found themselves in a bit of a soup on this one. So and they've had to do unprecedented increases, new practices to be able to both attract and retain. So I think it's just more than war for talent, and it's not something that's about to get over in the next couple of months.
But Nitin, is it a case of where you are seeing the old legacy companies retain talent, and on the other hand, you've got private companies extremely well capitalized? Look at the gush of liquidity. Now, if you're going to have the likes of Bharat Pay, for example, come out and say we need 100 engineers and we're going to give them iPad Pros and cricket match tickets in Dubai, as well as BMW superbikes, what's going to happen as far as this entire tech talent war goes?
Yeah. See, absolutely. So we've seen some of those news reports. I think one big challenge that India has is that, as big as our population is and availability of engineers is, there's only so much when companies go out and hire. So in that sense, it's the same talent moving around. We've met companies and CEOs and business and HR leaders who are saying that their talent has, when they go out and speak, has 5, 10, sometimes 15 offers in pocket, and they're always negotiating from that perspective. What could this mean? I think obviously it's not just within the startup industry where companies are throwing in different kinds of gadgets or equipments to attract talent. And I think even the old legacy companies have had no choice. From kind of getting in mid-year increases to putting in retention plans to deciding hot skills and doing more for them. So it's like I said, it's a bit of a soup that companies have found themselves in. It's challenging cost pyramids of organizations. So. It's a spot that companies are in, and like I said, it's not likely to get over in the next couple of quarters, or at least even in the next year or so.
So tell us, the buzz is when we do channel checks, but you tell us because you're one of the largest players out there and who can confirm it. That is it true that engineers are sitting with offers of increasing their salaries from anywhere from 45 to 60%? Is that what startups are offering?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, you're bang on. I think it's not just 40-50%. We've seen cases of where we've heard from leaders and companies about people have literally trebled their salaries over the last 6 months in that context. So because the need is so much, and especially for startups, where if you're a 10 people shop, you want to gear up to a 80 or 100, like you said. The talent is the fuel that you need to be able to kind of gear the business up. So they're going out of the way to be able to attract that talent on board. So I would say 30-40% has just become the norm at this period of time. Enough and more cases out there with people literally doubling, sometimes even trebling salaries over the last year or so.
Nitin, you just said in one of your answers that they're sitting with multiple offers. So that means if they're in a position to double their salary, which you're saying they have been in the last 6 months, they must be having counter offers also.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, uh, I don't think there is anybody in the tech industry at junior middle levels who's kind of going out and looking for a job who doesn't have more than a couple of offers out there, and bunch of things have happened. I think considering this, lots of companies have actually reduced the threshold at which they hire. So if they were going to tier one campuses, have started going to tier two campuses. No more can they find talent just in their regular talent catchment areas. So they've expanded those catchment areas. So in that context, absolutely, if you're looking for a job, if you're in tech industry, literally, I would say there's no one out there who's not hiring at the moment.
No, I take that point that there's no one who's hiring at the moment. Now, you brought up campuses. Throw some light, give us some numbers. How are the campus offers been? Have you seen a big jump this time, whether it's for engineers or even engineers who may have backed it up with MBAs, etc.? What is it
So
like?
campus,
What would the salaries be?
Yeah, so it depends which campus are you in. I think in India, typically what's been seen over the last many years is that there's a big difference between what are typically tier one campuses and then the others that follow. So if you are in one of the tier one campuses, if you're a computer sciences engineer or one kind of going out to work for a product company or a startup, your pay could start from anywhere upwards of 16, 18 lakhs and going up to 30, 35 lakhs in places. Sometimes companies in same campuses differentiate basis the data they get out of assessment results, assessment tools that they use. So in those campuses, tier two salaries are, I would say, more in the range of about 10 to 13, 14 lakhs. And then you have the tier three campuses where, many of the Indian typical service companies go where, starting from 3.5, 4 to upwards of 7, 8 lakhs.
And they can, of course, double all of that in just 6 months from what you're telling me.
No, I would say, what's happening is that I think doubling of those salaries where people are going out and kind of running after multiple offers, and I think companies too are kind of rolling those out because they need the talent. Like I said, talent is fuel. I think that's happening more at junior and middle levels, more at certainly not at senior levels. And companies are, I think the more mature companies are responding to this very differently as compared to startups and the others. Because the mature companies also want to kind of ensure that internal equity is retained. They can't pay you 50% more and pay me lesser for the same job that we're doing. So they're kind of trying to look at different ways of doing things. But startups and many of the others, early stage companies are absolutely not kind of looking at pay parity, internal equity, and the more important thing for them is to get talent on board.
So aren't they relying mostly on ESOPs, or do you think that just because of the gush of liquidity and the fact that they have cash in the bank, they don't only have to rely on ESOPs anymore to get the good talent?
No, I think ESOPs is just one of the things, Nayantara. I think it's a bunch of other things. I think it's cash. Most companies have upped their game on cash. They're willing to pay 15, 20, 30% more than what they've paid in usual times. Then companies are using a bunch of other tools, joining bonuses. And I would say in many ways, they were always prevalent, but return of the big joining bonuses at junior and middle levels is what we're beginning to see. In earlier years, they could be 5, 10 or 20% of compensation. We're beginning to see 30, 40, 50% of total comp being paid out as joining bonuses. Then some of the other things around, companies, if they don't have equity pools available because you don't give them to junior levels, they're creating cash-based plans with accelerated vesting over next 2-3 years to be able to make their offers more attractive. So it's a bunch of different things that are actually happening.
And then how are the mature companies pivoting?
Yeah, the more mature companies are looking at it slightly differently. I think, they don't want to, firstly, the more mature, it's not that some of these rewards or incentives, the ones that you spoke of, were not given in the past. We had companies across banking, financial services, technology, large family business houses, service companies that all gave some of these things out. But many of these things are given out to high performing talent or leadership teams that actually, created, big breakthroughs for organizations. In the new context, it's being given out to new joiners. So that's where the difference is. I think the more mature companies are looking at, mid-year increases. They're looking at increasing pay ranges to be able to do things. They're looking at more broad-based salary increases rather than just giving it to one-off talent who's putting in the paper or a bunch of new people who are coming on board. For them, maintaining internal parity is equally important rather than just kind of giving it out to some restricted talent.
So tell me one thing, a few years ago when you would see engineers come out of even our tier one campuses, right? They wanted to go overseas for jobs. But because you're seeing all the liquidity now also come to India, has that changed?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. Absolutely, I think we're seeing lots of Indian startups going in, and lots of these, this talent from tier one companies that was going out to work for the big global technology companies. Many of those tech companies are now beginning to do cutting edge, very high quality work that's impacting their core product out of India. So in that context, I would say some of that's going out has reduced. Many of these people are working in India in that context just because that work's happening in India, and pay on campus and pay for talent in India has actually become, from a rupee perspective, very interesting. In fact, the other thing that I would also say is that as interesting as pay hikes are, but we've also done analysis in terms of longitudinal analysis over the last 5 years, comparing salaries from a dollar perspective. And in that context, considering how dollar has moved over a period of time, average salaries in India have moved only in the range of about 3 to 5%. So on a rupee perspective, salaries may have gone up 8, 10, 12% for companies, but from a rupee perspective, it's more in the range of about 4 to 6%.
So I think then, can you tell us also that which kind of startups are willing to pay more? Have you been able to figure that out as yet?
Yeah. So I would say more early stage to mid stage startups. I think they are the ones paying more. As companies grow bigger in size, it becomes increasingly important for them to maintain internal parity. And they can't differentiate too much for same levels of jobs. So I would say early to mid-stage startups, especially that have engineering and technology talent that is less than 50, 100. I think those are the kind of companies that are paying more. Those are the companies that are willing to make differentiation for talent that's coming on board. I think the others are, I would say, ones that are closer to a point in time where new capital is being raised, new products need to be kind of pushed out into the market, product launches happening. I think those are the segments, but more of this is happening in early to early stage companies.
And are you also seeing a case that, let's say, if there's a startup, let's say in the biotech space, or one of these niche segments, are they paying more because they need those engineers a lot more?
So yeah, if your question is in terms of industries, I would say fintech, consumer tech, biotech increasingly in recent times. I think all of these sectors. In fact, I would say more than startups and types of startups, and it's about kind of skills. So it's more of data sciences, AI, machine learning. I think those are the kind of digital skills. I think those are the ones that are kind of the hottest skills in the market, and ones that are getting paid very differently and at significant premium over the others.
Okay, so with that, Nitin, any final comments that you have on what it is that, who do you see, okay, let me put it this way, who do you see winning this tech war, this tech talent war? The startups or the mature old legacy companies?
No, it's not about one winning versus the other. I think, firstly, I think startups will do what it takes to bring talent on board. Will they differentiate and pay more than the others? The answer is yes. They've got businesses to scale up. But I think in the long run, we've always advised companies to, not take short-term measures, build systems, processes that are able to both attract as well as retain talent. And you don't want to build differentiation in which then disengages talent and you don't get the best out. So, but again, having said that, it's a difficult spot for companies to be in. The war for talent, as we're calling it now, I think is out here to stay for at least next 12 to 18 months before things stabilize, because it's not just being driven by Indian companies, but a lot of new captives and new global organizations are coming in, and they're beginning to ramp up their Indian operations. So this is likely to stay here for some time.
Okay, Nitin, thanks so much for joining us today on Startup Central. So that's the big tech talent war that we're putting the spotlight on.
Yeah, thank you so much.